Documentaries are about the people that you meet and the stories you can tell. Stories of tragedy, laughter, hope and desperation, across faraway lands or right here in your own backyard. This podcast brings these stories to you, the listener, so that you can experience the adventures of documentary filmmaking in audio form while embarking on daily adventures of your own. Welcome to Barefoot Media's Stories Within Stories podcast with your host, Simon-Holland. Tim Glover is a digital entrepreneur and founder of Chronicle.io. Tim has worked with Universal Pictures and Amblin Entertainment in a consulting creative writing capacity on the Jurassic World franchise in Los Angeles. His portfolio includes expanded universe and IP consultation services, which he has parlayed into a career working in digital IP. In 2021, Tim co-founded Chronicle, a fan-focused Web3 company that officially onboards licensed content from beloved brands. Chronicle is a studio and marketplace digital platform built entirely for fans, featuring officially licensed digital collectibles, more commonly known as NFTs. In this episode, Tim discusses the uses of NFTs to fill an important need in the funding and licensing of original IP. Tim, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Simon. How are you?
We are talking all things Chronicle, digital, futuristic. We've got a lot in common we can cover.
Yeah.
Tim Glover, aka Flight Runner.
A flight runner. We can talk about that as well.
Can we talk a little bit about Flight Runner? So we were chatting about other things and then came along that you like synthwave. So synthwaves is a 80s inspired retro electro movement that has been gathering steam lately.
It is.
And it's quite accessible to make because it's a lot of vintage synths and stuff like that. So how did you get into that?
I'm actually trying to remember, but I'd been into music pretty much all my life. My dad was in a band in Brisbane, Queensland, just been around music my whole life. And I started to get into this sort of synth sounds and arpeggiation beats and whatnot and loops. And must have been on Spotify or YouTube or something, some tracks just started reaching out to me. And I'm like, wow, this is really cool. And you deep dive and you discover that there's this whole genre of talent based out of North America, Europe, France, and whatnot. And obviously, I think we had a mutual taste in Gunship.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, very cool band.
Yeah, on my showreel, Pink Mist.
Yeah, exactly.
It went so good.
No, their first album was absolutely fantastic. And they followed it up with another great album.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that it's very much, whenever I get described what is synthwave, I'm like, it's obviously 80s inspired, but if I had to describe it, I'm like, what's the 80s take on what the future would be? And that's how I...
Yeah. And it's pretty accessible because I guess when, say, John Carpenter was making those kind of scores back in the day, the Escape from LA and stuff, that's the cutting edge technology and that's what he thought was cool. Like mullets, like the guys walk around with mullets go, this is the most sophisticated haircut I can get at this. It's cutting edge. But like now for us, we can do it with computers and software and create inspired beats quite easily, really, isn't it? So you've been doing a little bit of that yourself?
Yeah, 100% right. And yeah, anyone with a laptop can just go off and do it. You don't need a huge recording studio, have to edit MIDI notes and you've got the right sounds. Yeah, you can create a synthwave track, which is really cool. Yeah, I dabbled in it a little bit. I found that trying to get a recording studio to record like drums and bass and guitars is going to take a lot of time. Something in the synthwave genre, as I said, in 4 hours, you can have a song.
Yeah,
which is amazing.
If you know what you're doing, like musically.
Musically, yeah. So obviously you still need to know how to compose. You still need to know what chords match the track and whatnot. But yeah, using 80s Yamaha and Roland and different plugins, VST plugins. Like, yeah, I started to dabble and a few tracks sounded all right. And you'd send them to your friends and just be like, am I losing my mind here? Or is,
am I onto something?
Yeah. I started just plugging away in my home in my spare time. And 20 tracks later, I still have a whole folder full of all of these samples just sitting there.
I find in my experience, if it gets done in 3 hours or it doesn't get done at all, you get on that wave of creativity and momentum late at night generally and just smash it out. Otherwise, it just sort of, you can't get back into it.
What I also found, Simon, was like I would start on a track and like writer's block, I might be like, okay, there's something really cool here. I don't know what to do next. I'm going to park it for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I'll come back and then I'll just be like, oh, I know exactly what to do. And I finish it. And yeah, that happened a lot as well.
Yeah, get the fresh eye. So how old are you, can I ask?
I'm 36.
36. So you are inspired directly by the 80s movies that sort of came along. So you were renting Van Damme, Schwarzenegger, like Stallone stuff.
Yeah, I think my 80s is more kind of Indiana Jones, Star Wars, Blade Runner. Yeah, that's probably more. I'm very Lucasfilm, Spielberg.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. All of those flicks are classics, aren't they? And although I was born in the 80s, don't quite remember the 80s. I'm a 90s kid, but definitely respect to the 80s.
Yeah.
They got it right.
And there was, I think, so 80s and 90s is obviously two separate decades, but the crossover period between those two was the epic bit.
Yeah.
Like so 80s was people discovering it. They're like lots of triangle designs and big hairdos and shoulder pads and weird crap. And the music was like a bit thin. But it was the later the 80s when the 80s knew what it was. And it was going into the 90s going, what can the 90s be?
Yeah.
And culture's starting to get around the world. We grew up with that. So I'm 38. So we grew up with that combination of Nickelodeon sort of cartoons, but then The Secret World of Alex Mack, that kind of like TV shows. But then also we had like just the epic like Transformers and Thundercats, Mask, all that like good stuff from the late 80s, early 90s.
Whenever I think of the early 90s, I'm always coming back to Micro Machines. I don't know why.
Micro Machines. Yeah.
That was the big thing when I was a kid.
And that was also one of the sickest racing games on the Mega Drive.
Yeah.
Because you had like, it was a sort of top-down racer and it was over like little tabletops and stuff, but it was co-op. So you could sit there and race your mates and stuff. And that was business.
Yeah, I remember my first gaming console, you reminded me, was it the Sega Master
System? Yeah, 2 buttons.
Yeah, that's right. And I had Alex the Kid in Miracle World.
Oh, built in.
Yeah.
That was a motherfucker of a game.
Yeah, no, that was very difficult. It's funny that you brought that up, how difficult it was. I actually went back and played a ROM of it like a few years ago and I went to the very last level and I still couldn't. I went.
You didn't know the scissors, paper, rock?
No, that scissors, paper, rock was actually built in. So if you just knew, it was like it wasn't.
But there's no internet to look.
Exactly.
So some fucker had to do it all the way and just know.
You just had to write it down
on a napkin. Which meant you had to play the game through to get to the last boss. You basically had to play that game through 7 times to get to know it.
Yes. Yeah. And as I found out, there were many levels of scissors, paper, rock, and I'm pretty sure that correct me if I'm wrong, someone will probably correct us, but I'm pretty sure that the very last scissors, paper, rock is actually random. And you don't know. It's not coded.
Bloody.
Yeah. So they saved the randomization for the very last one. It's just as a bit of a joke.
Yeah. And so like to fill in people that were born any other time before us, that game had no continued. It was built into the Master System. So it's the one game that everybody had. Yeah. But it had no continues. You only had a certain amount of lives. You just kind of had to do it. And it was shit mechanics too. Like you jump and you skate a little bit on the bricks. It was a tricky game.
Yeah, I remember always dying in the forest and even underwater was a bit tricky as well because you'd float up. So you'd be holding the down arrow. Trying that, you're right.
Coffee went down. The whiskey goes fine. The coffee goes down badly.
That's one of the two. Yeah, so you'd be trying to control his character underwater and there'd be octopuses with tentacles.
Throwing fireballs.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
All of that.
But that anything underwater can go fuck itself, number one. So like Sonic, when the water's rising there and you got to get the air bubbles.
Yep.
Donkey Kong Country, anything water. Mario, the Mario one with the fire. Oh, yeah, that's it. Anything underwater. So I hate that.
Yeah, very difficult.
What was your favorite game? So Master System is where I started. I traded in a bodyboard for it.
Yep.
What was the first game that you loved?
That I loved. Okay, I'm a bit of a cricket fan.
Oh, yeah.
So the Mega Drive came out and Shane won cricket 96.
Yeah.
Pretty sure that was the game. Begged my parents for it. And I was like, I'm just going to.
Wait, you had a Master System in 96?
No. So it was the Master System was when I was a kid. So that was like, 92, 93.
91, 90,
yeah. And then, they got me the Mega Drive.
Yeah. Mega Drive was the business.
Yeah.
That's sort of the rich kids that had at school in 91. And by that, they'd got sick of it, so you could like buy it off them pretty cheap.
So I had both for a while, and I asked, and I didn't expect my parents to say yes, but they were like, they looked at each other one day in Toys R Us, and like, we should get it for him. And wow,
he could be a cricketer.
Yeah, so I just spent like hours and hours playing Shane Warne Cricket 96. And,
as Shane Warne.
I'd pick Australia. So that was a fun game because you could edit. I remember you could edit the team, and you could put in your favorite players and play World Cup tournaments and stuff like that. Yeah.
We have upstairs, I don't know if you saw when you had the tour, Super International Cricket on the Super NES.
Wow.
I have the cartridge still. So I sold this thing and I told the person who bought it that there was this many games and I kept that one because I knew that game was going to be special.
That is a special game.
Yeah. And Ryan Sparkler, the guy we work with, my business partner, he is a massive cricket fan. He's actually the Australian lacrosse goalie. couldn't make it in cricket. We couldn't hack it with cricket. So we like to tease him, but he's obsessed with cricket. So that's how we solve our disputes. If we have a problem, we play super international cricket, and that's how we resolve anything.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but was that almost like a precursor to the PC game, EA Cricket 96? Is it similar?
I don't know. I never really got to, for me, because cricket was a special period. Like there was a special time in that period where I was a kid doing it. And then I realized that I needed contact sports to make me happy.
Fair enough. You weren't getting enough bouncers at your head, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I got out of cricket and I've just started getting back into it. There's an Amazon series called The Test.
Yes.
And it's Justin Langer and the boys go to India. And I'm like, that was one of the best series I've seen lately, I think, on TV. So
there's been a lot of good cricket lately. Yeah, it's amazing. I think we've been fortunate as well with the pandemic that they've still been able to play and entertain us. But there's been some fantastic cricket lately. When Indians came here, I think that was a fantastic series.
Yeah, what a rivalry. That's what we started to think. If there's a country of 1.3, 1.4 billion people, if they get the sort of sporting facilities that we have and get their act together, oh my God. And also you go over there, I don't know if you've been to India, but everywhere you go around there, people playing cricket.
Yep.
With sticks, whatever it takes. The Don Bradman story, but en masse. And
100%.
Here we're kicking footies.
It's like they're born with it, aren't they? And I think you see evidence of that in their under-19 teams. When you have under-19 World Cups, the last champion was Bangladesh. And I think before then you had India, Pakistan. Yeah. Cricket's in their blood. Yeah,
Australia might never win again. We need to be prepared for that. That's what I mean. Like, if that's what you think about China with anything. If they get 1 billion people sorted, heading in the right direction, oh my God, you're in big trouble. Especially a country like us, 27 million. Let's go back to your main hustles. We've covered cricket, synthwave, side hustles, all side hustles there. Your main hustle is Chronicle. Can you tell us what Chronicle is, first of all?
So Chronicle is a platform for fans to access digital collectibles, otherwise known as non-fungible tokens or NFTs that are on the blockchain. NFTs have been quite in the media as of late. So you've had artists like Beeple selling artwork, digital artwork for ridiculous amounts of money. I think he sold his collection piece for something like $69 million.
What?
Yeah, insane.
Wait, how? What?
Yeah, that was a collection of. So he's a digital artist that's been creating NFTs for a while, and he basically had a collage of all of his artwork, and he sold that, and it went to auction.
And there's just one of them.
Just one of that.
And it's on a blockchain, so it can never be, the original is always preserved.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The original. And in fact, the owner who ended up buying it, lovely person. I don't know him personally, but I saw the documentary and.
Wait, they bought it for $69 million?
Yeah, $69 million based in Singapore. And he's trying to basically create his own Ready Player One kind of immersive metaverse that anyone can go into. And when he bought it, I want the whole world to be able to view this and access it. And he's put that in his metaverse for everyone to see.
Okay.
So I thought that was pretty cool. But yes, we've seen the opportunity with NFTs that there are people creating digital artwork. There are games, creating avatars. The first question that typically comes to mind is, why would I pay money for something digital like a GIF or whatnot? And I'm like, we've been playing games for a long time. And then like in the last 10 years, games, even though you might play it for free or buy the initial game, you have like in-game content that you purchase.
Yeah,
like
hats.
All of that.
Yeah,
all of that.
Yeah,
Could
weapon,
be weapons,
missions,
avatars, all of that.
Uh-huh.
Downloadable content. And I'm like, it's like that, but then applied to everything else. So in this very interesting transitionary period in the world where we've got the physical world that we've always been used to. Go to school, I go to a university, I go to work, and it's all in the real world. But we're starting to literally create probably the seeds of something that looks like a Ready Player One. Where, I've got my social media network online. I can date people online. I can play games online. I can work online. And the kind of the seeds of everything is starting to become digitalized. And it's, if I'm going to have artwork on the wall at home, or if I'm going to go and collect a official piece of licensed memorabilia from my favorite sporting team, like a jersey, why can't I do the same thing in the digital realm? Yeah. And that's what's starting to emerge. And with Chronicle, we thought, you've got some fantastic ideas, which are very, at the moment, focused on the crypto landscape. If I want to get into a non-fungible token or a collectible, I typically need to understand